just do this. Okay.
1 to 11.
Now,
It's when he created
there
the
you go.
earth.
There you go. That's when God created the earth.
Right.
And on the seventh day he rested, is the primeval history. Now we go to the fall of humanity, and we'll read from that. We talk about the serpent later on in this outline, and the serpent was the devil. It says, now the serpent was more subtle than any beast on the field which the Lord God had made. And he had said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree in the garden. And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden. But the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest you die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. So that's where it started.
Okay.
That was our fall of humanity. Adam followed countersuit, and
Eve had Adam eat the apple.
he gave in to her temptation.
Right.
She said, I ate of it. Why don't you? And even being instructed by God, he went ahead and followed through with that. So when he'd done that, they seen the world as sinners this time. It's kind of funny, God come walking through the garden after that. God knows everything. He already knew what happened. They tried to hide from God, knowing that he was the creator of the world, the creator of them. He already knew what happened. He was just testing them. And they still lied to him and tried to cover each other up. And he kicked them out of the garden. And when he kicked them out of the garden, they could never enter again. And that's when he put the curses on both of them.
And what was the curse?
And the Lord God said unto the serpent, Because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the field. Upon the belly shalt thou go, and the dust thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. And unto Adam he said, Because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and hast eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake, and the sorrow thou eat of it all the days of thy life. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth the tree, and thou shalt eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of thy face thou eat bread, till thou return to the ground, for out of it wasn't thou taken. For dust thou art, and to dust thou return.
And what scriptures are them?
And that is chapter 3, verse 14 through 20.
Okay.
And chapter 3, 22 through 24. Chapter 3, verses 22 through 24 is the man sent from the garden. The Lord God said, Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil, and now lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. Therefore the Lord God sent him forth from the garden of Eden to till the ground from whence he was taken. So he drove out man, and he placed at the east of the garden of Eden cherubims and a flaming sword, which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. So now we got to, that was the fall of humanity.
Okay.
And now we're going forward. They had 2 children, Cain and Abel. Now we're going to learn of what this sin that they didn't have before, because they were perfect just like God. We were all intended to be perfect. We were created for His glory and His honor. That's why He created us. But when they went against Him and sinned, now we got this. They're kicked out of the garden. Now we're cursed.
We have pain.
Thank you, Adam and Eve, right? So Cain and Abel were their sons, and they got to experience, both of them did, the sorrow and the hate of true sin. They got to experience a jealousy and rage and malice of another brother, and Cain killed Abel. Because he was jealous, because Cain didn't offer as much as what Abel did to sacrifice to the Lord.
Okay, where's your verse?
And Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass, when they were in the field, that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. And the Lord said unto Cain, Where is Abel thy brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, What hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. And that is chapter 4, verses 8 through 10. That's when he becomes jealous, so jealous and enraged that he killed his own brother out of jealousy and hate.
Which is what always happens. Twisted
And
sister.
God cursed Cain after that. And this is in chapter 4, verses 11. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from your hand. Chapter 4, verse 12 says, When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. So, anything else that Cain grew will never grow again, will never bring life to it. God cursed him in that way. Now we'll move on to the promise to Abraham.
Wait a minute. What happened to the covenant with Adam?
Yeah, that's right. I'm going to have a lot of editing to do. We'll go through there. Alright. Get a drink.
What chapter is that?
We got the covenant of Adam next,
It's
and the flood
yeah.
that we all know as Noah's Ark. The flood that
Is that still the same chapter?
6 through 10. Chapter 6 through 10.
Oh,
We got the covenant with
chapters.
Adam
Okay.
and the flood. They're all within those chapters.
So what was the covenant with Adam?
Yeah, mainly that one.
How?
You okay? It said, my header here to start chapter 6 of Genesis says, man's wickedness. So, it says, And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of the men, and they were fair. And they took them wives for all which they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit shall not always strive with man, for that he is also yet flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bare children to them, and the same became mighty men, for which were old men of renown. When God saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually, and it repented the Lord that he had made man on earth, and it grieved him at his heart. So now we're seeing God going, kind of thinking, look what all this has caused, you know. And the Lord said, I will destroy man who I have created from the face of the earth, both man and beast, and the creeping thing, and the fowls of the air, for it repenteth me that I have made them. So his covenant with Adam was that after Cain killed Abel, they had another son, Seth.
Mm-hmm.
All right? And we'll read about the birth of Seth going back to chapter 4, verse 25. It said, And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth. For God said, She hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. And to Seth, to him also was he born a son, and he called his name Enos. He then began men to call upon the name of the Lord. So Adam's descendants. And chapter 5 is all of Adam's descendants. So we got, there's a whole lot of them.
Yes.
And we'll just name some of them. Male and female created he them and blessed them in chapter 5 verse 2, and called their name Adam and the day that they were created. And Adam lived 130 years and begat a son in his own likeness, after his image, and called his name Seth. And the days of Adam after he had begotten Seth were 800 years, and he begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Adam lived were 930 years, and he died.
Dang.
So God promised him that after all this, because why? Because God loves us. He felt merciful. What was the main purpose here? To teach Israel, what is it? The book summary here. That even through disobedience and tragedy, that God still loves us, still feels mercy for us, that He has a great heart and sorrow and welcomeness for a sinner. And so, because that happened, He let them have Seth. And you've seen how long that Adam lived after that.
CC.
If Dave don't make you see,
Yeah, oh my God.
No, he walks. He doesn't sit in one place and do this.
John does
Go
that
back
make
and forth.
sense.
I don't have a lot of room here. I got tables I'll run into.
He marches.
I'll be like an old blind cat. And Seth lived 105 years and begat Enos. So we knew that. So Seth lived that long, and he had a son named Enos. Now Enos' descendants, and Enos lived 90 years and begat Canaan. And Enos lived after he begat Canaan 815 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Enos were 905 years.
You can have a lot of kids in 800 years.
And he died. I like how it says that. And he died.
Yes.
After all that time. Now, Canaan's descendants, Canaan lived 70 years and begot Mahalalel.
No, I can't pronounce some of the names.
We're in the south, I'm sorry. And Canaan lived after he begat Mahalalel 840 years and begat sons and daughters. And all of the days of Canaan were 910 years, and then he died. Mahalalel's descendants, Mahalalel lived 65 years and begat Jared. And Mahalalel lived after he begat Jared 830 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Mahalalel were 895 years, and he died. Now Jared's descendants lived 162 years and begat Enoch. Now we'll talk about Enoch later on. And Jared lived after he begot Enoch 800 years, and he begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Jared were 962 years, and he died. Now we got Enoch lived 65 years and begat Methuselah. Methuselah, we will learn something cool about him.
Yes.
And Enoch walked with God after he begat Methuselah 300 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Enoch were 365 years. And Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. Mm-hmm. He did not die a human death. Remember Pastor Dave talking about that? He didn't sit there and wither away into the ground. God brought him. He said, come with me. Wish I could go like that. And Methuselah's descendants, Methuselah lived 187 years and begat Lamech.
God, having a kid at 200.
And Methuselah lived and he begat Lamech 782 years and begat sons and daughters. And all the days of Methuselah were 969 years.
Oh.
And he died. So Methuselah is the oldest person ever to live in the Bible. So did you see how even as we sin today, the lifespan, what's the average lifespan, like 72?
Something like that.
Something like that. All right, now, they straightened up their act. And these are people that live nothing but for God, and God let them live almost
Nearly 1,000 years.
nearly 1,000 years here with Methuselah walking
What kind of
around.
shape are you in at 1,000?
I wonder if he was still clicking his heels at 800.
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
He was still getting around some because he was still having kids.
Papa was a rolling stone. All right, so now we get back to chapter 6 into Noah. And we see here that Noah finds grace with God in chapter 6, verse 8. But Noah found grace in the eyes of the Lord. And these are the generations of Noah. And Noah was just a man and perfect in his generations, and Noah walked with God. And Noah begat 3 sons, Shem,
Be Shadrach and Abednego.
Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Japheth.
Shem, Ham.
We call him Jep. Shem, Ham, and Jep. And the earth was also corrupt before God, and the earth was filled with violence. And God looked upon the earth, and behold, it was corrupt, for all the flesh had corrupted his way upon the earth. And God said unto Noah, the end of all flesh is come before me, for the earth is filled with violence through them, and behold, I will destroy them with the earth. So, that was the first warning. God told Noah it's happening. And that's where the flood come in. Now, everybody knows the story of the ark and how it come to be. We could go over that real quick. It's chapter 6, verses 14 through 17. Yeah. And it said, building the ark. Make thee an ark of gopher wood. Rooms thou shalt made in the ark, and shalt pitch it within and without with pitch. And this is the fashion which thou make of it. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits. The breadth of it's 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. A window shalt thou make to the ark, and the cubits shalt thou finish it above, and the door of the ark shalt thou set inside thereof, with lower second and third stories shalt thou make it. And behold, I do bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy the flesh wherein is the breath of life, and under the heaven, and everything that is in earth shall die. So that's the second warning. So we learned about how the ark was built, what came to happen. There was, besides this one family that descended from Adam, everything else was corrupt. Now, if we can imagine, today's movies they're easy to with all the technology and the guns.
Were they the only people on there?
No, there was more.
That's what I thought.
There was way more. They were the only ones to live by God and follow Him. That whole family was. The descendants of Adam were. Everybody else was so corrupt. If you've ever watched the movie The Purge,
Let me ask you this.
that's kind of how like it was. There was so much sinning and killing, and it
Was
just
everybody
disrespect.
at that time a descendant of Adam?
Pretty much. If you trace it back, if you really want to trace it back all the way through, we are direct descendants from Moses. So from Moses on to Abraham. So Moses, we're all from one family. If you really want to count it back that far, Moses.
We're all
So how you
Arkansas.
gotta come up with all the different races?
That is in a later chapter. That's at that's at the Tower of Babel. Everybody understood everybody in that, and I'll just give you a little heads
I
up.
remember that.
And then
Everybody was
then he-
speaking in tongues and
Then all of a sudden he
And
said,
all of a sudden, they all had different languages,
and
and
then
they
it'd be
all went.
like me, all of us sitting here, and we're all mopping one side of the floor. We can understand each other. Teresa starts speaking Russian, you start speaking Mandarin Chinese, and I'm over here speaking some kind of Swahili. We can't understand each other.
So
how can
they
we
just
finish the
left,
job?
I guess. They
Yeah.
took their people and left.
They just like,
The ones that talk like them.
hey, you sound like me. Come on.
They're the ones
And
that
they split.
understand 'em.
But how, it doesn't say anything about.
But what the purpose of it was.
Right.
They were
or
arguing. They were arguing
about
Oh,
and
yeah.
building idols.
About
Yeah.
them looking different. I mean,
I know.
how did we come up with black people,
Chinese.
Indians?
different skins, different.
Right.
Ray Stevens got a song called "Everybody's Beautiful."
Well, yes, I know this, and I believe this. I just always was curious.
Yeah, have the
how
colors
it
of the
came
skin.
about. And
I
I've
can
never
tell you, I
seen
remember a
anything
little
in
bit
the
what my
Bible
grandpa
about it.
said when he put the mark on her head. That's how it kind of come to be. I can remember
On whose
that
head?
much, and that disproves that we don't come from monkeys. You know what I mean? That disproves that whole theory because he put a mark on her head that's what was going to happen. Women would have to go through from here on out.
Right.
So that much I do remember. And looking into it further, I'm going to be looking into it further too myself because that's always interested me. Just like when Dave mentioned from Matthew, when the graves, when Jesus died, people that were just buried, had been buried, walked into the city, what happened to them afterward? I have been searching like crazy to find what happened to them afterwards. Did they just drop that
Well,
there
he
again?
said he had too.
I know. And when he started that, he started a fire in me, and it started a chain reaction of OCD. And I'm like, I have to find something on it where it can lead me. And I'm like him. I'll be looking until God comes and gets me, apparently. So the flood happened. 2 by 2. He gathered all the animals that God told him. And we're talking female, male, female, male. That's how it went. Of everything that was on the earth. And so as we know, what is it, 40 days and 40 nights?
Now, I was thinking that it wasn't just 2 of everything.
It's 4. 2 by 2. 2 by 2.
2 males.
We were talking about that, yeah.
2 by 2.
Yeah, we were talking about that, because
That's
I
how you
didn't
can
know that
that's how you
either.
can get
I didn't
confused.
know
Yeah.
that.
And that's another point people do get confused on, and I'm glad you cleared that up, but it's 2 by 2, 4. So female, female, male, male of the same species. So you got to think, that thing in Covington, Kentucky, they say is really, 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 really accurate to what that was.
It's exact, it's supposed to be.
And I'm telling you,
It's close to it. as
that
it
is
can be.
humongous.
Well, the picture of it, the guy standing at the bottom of it, and you can't even see him.
You get the doors.
I mean,
they
he looks
had,
like he's this tall, and it's this tall.
I
I'd
followed
love to go see that.
the world's strongest man, Brian Shaw, and they visited that. And Brian is 7 foot, and he's not even halfway up the doors on that thing. And so you can imagine. And when all this was happening while he was building it,
I can't believe they
people
built
were going
something
by,
like
these
that.
other people that weren't in his family, thinking, what is he doing? He is crazy. Who's God? What shower, right? And then when it happened and they finally got loaded up and it sat there and the sprinkles began to hit. Now humor me if you will. What would you have thought when it started sprinkling and then gradually built to
I know
nothing
what you'd thought. You'd thought,
but a
oh,
downpour?
crap.
And they didn't know what rain was.
No. So what would you have
They
thought?
didn't know rain.
What would you have thought? Like, because Noah was sitting there straight telling them, this is what's going to happen.
And he did that for weeks and months
Yes.
and years,
Yes.
telling
It
them
took him
over and
100
over.
years to build it.
Yes,
Yeah.
he did. And so these people are like, okay, it hadn't happened yet, like
Right.
sitting there like that, and then, oh, what is this coming from the sky? And then all of a sudden, there it is, and then you're no more. So,
Well, it said it took them, 3 years to build that one.
oh yeah,
And they had tools.
they
They
had
didn't have
cranes.
no
Power
tools.
They had cranes, they had everything.
Yeah, it's
They had-
amazing how they did that with no tools.
They went off, some Bibles have it, I don't know. Mine, my Apologetics Bible has the exact construction of it
Yeah.
in it, and that's how they went off of it. That's crazy, and God allowed that to happen.
So
for a
the
second
promise to
time.
Abraham was he was going to burn or flood the earth.
No,
No,
that was a promise to Noah. The covenant
Oh, yeah,
with
to
Noah.
Noah.
That his family would be the only family from henceforth. So we look at promise to Abraham, which is in chapter 12, and Abraham's call. Now the Lord had said unto Abraham, get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto the land that I will shew you thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee. And make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that blesseth thee, and curse him that curseth thee. and in these shall all families of the earth be blessed. So you see that where it started, how we all come from there. You see, Noah, we all
come from Noah's family. We all come
exactly.
from
So,
Noah.
and furthermore, God's just saying,
We would have all been blessed if they hadn't turned wicked.
And actually, we still even go back to Adam because Noah had to come from Adam.
Yep.
Because
Yeah,
but if you
I
trace
got
it,
to
you
come
know,
a
trace
little
it.
bit too hard to hurt.
I have to be real careful. Boy.
So Adam departed, this is in chapter 12, verse 4, as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him, and Abraham was 75 years old. Abram. And when he departed out of Haran. And Abram took, how would y'all pronounce that? Sarai?
How's it spelled?
Sarai. There's that
Sarai.
there's that extra A in there. His
Oh,
wives, and Lot, his brother, and all of their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that went they had gotten in Haran. And they went forth and into the land of Canaan, and to the land of Canaan they came. So, when God said go out and leave your home, leave everything that you're used to, and go wandering out here until I tell you to stop. When that happened, God made a covenant with him that his descendants would be as numerous, more numerous than the sands on the beach and the stars in the sky. And we're all here in the world to tell that. That's another truth that you can't refute. So we go to
What's the
the circumcision.
patriarchal history?
That's chapters 12 through 36. So that's beginning from after
Promise to
Noah
Abraham.
on to Abraham. Now this is where our story continues. This is where our history begins of the world. And
What about the
you know,
circumcision?
we're learning about the circumcision right now, ma'am.
I remember the great discussion we had about the circumcision.
Yeah.
Terry was about to.
Yeah, so was Todd.
Yeah. So, in chapter 17, I remember this too. God renews his covenant. And when Abraham was 90 years old and 9, so 99 years old, the Lord appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty God, walk before me and be thou perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and I will multiply thee exceedingly. And Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be the father of many nations.
So that's the covenant with Abraham.
That is the covenant with Abraham. Now we get into from Abram to Abraham. Neither shall thy name be any more called Abram, but thy name shall be called Abraham, for the father of many nations have I made thee. And I will make thee exceedingly fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of these. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee, and thy seed after thee, and the generations for an everlasting covenant, to be God unto thee, and to thy seed after thee. And I will give unto thee, and to thy seed after thee, the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan. And for everlasting possession I will be their God. And God said unto Abraham, Thou shalt keep my covenant thou before thy seed after thee in the generations. This is my covenant which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man child among you shall be circumcised. And I'll just, we come back to thinking about that,
So he's talking to Abram.
Yeah, Abraham. So he changed his name from Abram to Abraham at 99 years old. Commanded him to circumcise himself at 99 years old, and everybody after him.
So I don't understand why they were so big into changing the names. I mean, why God was.
Yeah, like
Like
Saul to Paul.
Right.
Well, I mean, that's living a past life.
I guess.
You think about that. That's our redemption. Back then that was their redemption. That
Yeah.
was walking from, say, my name Bill or my name William, and God changing it to like Billy or Danny or something. It's because God's forgiven my past life and I'm new in Him now. It's our redemption story.
So what was the point of the circumcision? Did it say?
Cleanliness and, I forgot, I read that before.
What was the question?
What was the point of it? Why they started that?
To make the covenant. That was
That was
covenant
their
behold.
way of showing that they were.
That was, God said, do
With
this.
Right.
And here's the whole thing behind the Old Testament. Okay? God says,
Do something, you do it.
yeah, go forth and do. And I will do for you. Now in the New
For I am
Testament,
your God.
exactly.
That's it.
Because God says do, that is the law. In the New Testament, after Jesus had died, it is, I have done this. There, it's finished. That's it. So that's the main point behind this whole Bible is from the Old Testament, God says go and do, because it's my law. Go and do it, and I will make you the best
And
person
I will
ever.
do for you.
And I will do for you. The New Testament come along,
And after every time you would say, because I am your God.
I am your God. You're exactly right. Say that again a little bit louder, Michelle.
Because I am your God.
Woo! Thank you. I love that. So now in the latter half of the chapter, we see, we get into Joseph, who is, once again, a descendant of Abraham. And it says, Joseph and the migration to Egypt, which is chapters 37 through 50 in Genesis. So turn there with me. Teresa's hand is just...
What, to the Bible or to this? I thought she was going to say something about it, so I was going to write it down there.
Yeah, chapters 37 to 50.
I got more room down
Is
here.
that we see Joseph in the migration to Egypt. So now Joseph's dreams, it says, how we start in chapter 37. And in verse 1 said, And Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger, and in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. And it lists the generations of Jacob. So, and Joseph began having these dreams of going somewhere else and being hated and what was going to happen to him. So the sheaf, it says in verse 5 of chapter 37, And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it to his brethren, and they hated him yet more. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were blessing sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose, and also stood upright, and behold, your sheaves stood around about, and made obeisance to my sheaf. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us, or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet more for his dreams and for his words. So, after this, and it said he dreamed yet another dream in chapter 37, verse 9, and told it to his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and to his brethren. And his father rebuked him and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee to the earth? And his brethren envied him. And his father observed him, saying. So on the next and verses 12, it says Joseph searched for his brothers, and his brethren went to feed their flock in Shem. So this is where his brothers come up with a plan, because they're mad at him. He's having these great dreams. His father's mad at him. They all get together in a group, and we see this hate and envy again, because God has chosen him and not any of them. And so this is great.
Yeah, we know the story.
So we know about the hole, and they left him there, and all right. And how he come to be, because he was a slave.
They gave him away, didn't they?
Yep. They sold him.
Mhm.
They straight up sold him. They sold their brother. Chapter 39 gives Joseph success in Egypt. It said Joseph as an overseer, and I'll read a little bit from there in chapter 39 of Genesis. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of the Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down thither. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master the Egyptian. And his master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did to prosper in his hand. And Joseph found grace in his sight, and he served him, and he made him overseer of his house, and all that he had put into his hand. And it came to pass from that time he had made him overseer in his house, and all over that he had, that the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all of us, and had in the house and in the field. And he left all that he had in Joseph's hands, and he knew not aught he had, save the bread which he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person, and well favored. So,
The major characters were God, Adam, Eve, serpent, Noah, Abraham.
well, we got Jacob's death too, but we know what happened with Jacob.
Sorry.
Now, who had the dreams, Joseph or Jacob?
Joseph had those dreams. Jacob, we'll learn about him in chapter 49 real quick. I'll just read a little bit of it. It said, Jacob's prophecy is my header, Jacob's prophecy and blessing. And Jacob called unto his sons and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Gather yourselves together, and ye hear, sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father. And he went on and told him, Rebuke, thou art my firstborn, my might, and my being of my strength, and excellency of dignity, and excellency of power. Unstable as water thou shalt excel, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed, and defiledst thou it. He went up to my couch. So Simon and Levi, he told him the same thing. Judah, Zebulun, Issachar, Dan, Gad, Naphtali, Joseph, Benjamin, and Jacob's burial instructions to all his sons, what he wanted exactly to happen. And we'll read that, and that's in chapter 49, verse 29 through 33. Benjamin shall raven as a wolf in the morning. He shall devour the prey, and that night he shall divide the spoil. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel. This is where we get the 12 tribes of Israel.
Can you hear us, Daddy?
And this is that their father spake unto them and blessed them, every one according to his blessing. He blessed them. And he charged them and said unto them, I am to be gathered unto my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite. And the cave that is in the field of Machpelah? Y'all look at it and tell me.
I'm from the south.
God knows what I'm trying to say. Which is before Mamre, in the land of Canaan, which Abraham bought with the field of Ephron the Hittite for a possession of a buying place. They are buried Abraham and Sarah his wife. There they buried Isaac and Rebekah his wife, and I buried Leah. The purchase of the field and of the cave as therein was from the children of Heth. And then the death of Jacob. And that is chapter 49, verse 33. And when Jacob had made an end of his commanding his sons, he gathered up his feet into his bed and yielded up the ghost and was gathered unto his people. So, the book summary. Teresa, you want to read that? One more time, Teresa!
I am time. Genesis is the story of the creation of human disobedience and its tragic consequences, and of God's choosing Abraham and his offspring, the beginning of the story of redemption. The book of Genesis is the recording of two significant histories. The primeval history poetically describes the earliest chapters of humanity, creation, the fall, the spread of sin and judgment, and the introduction of salvation by the grace of God. The second history records the growth of God's people and presents their faithfulness and failures, This history ends with God's people residing in Egypt at the time of Joseph. Genesis begins the Bible story with God as the creator. Human beings is created in God's image but fallen, and God's response through a redemption creation of the chosen people, and doing so through all kinds of circumstances and despite their faults. The Genesis narratives go to great lengths to show that God alone would ultimately fulfill his covenant promises.
Michelle, you want to read the themes for us?
Salvation, God entering into relationship with individuals and people. Sin, what went wrong and is wrong with us and the universe. Divine grace, God shows unmerited favor and kindness towards sinners. Faith, what it takes to get to the promised land. Deliverance, God takes care of delivers his people. Sovereignty, God is in complete control despite the apparent power of the opposition.
All right.
Right.
So back to what I said before. This is one of the most refuted books that we have in the Bible because the realists and the rationalists try to combat the first half and how we're made, and especially what I told you before, that when he put the mark on the head, that signified us.
What are you talking about, the mark on the head?
When
When he cursed Eve.
when he cursed Eve,
Oh, when he cursed Eve,
When he cursed
he
Eve.
put a mark on her head.
put a mark on her head, and that's how we are defined, that we didn't come from monkeys. You know what I
We
mean?
ain't got no mark.
That was back then, Teresa.
You better be nice.
Brother John,
Get your papers.
Johnny,
Yes, sir.
you about said ma'am, didn't you?
Talk to him
Hey.
while I empty that tank.
What?
You want to say anything to the video?
Say a prayer. Say a
Yes,
prayer,
we
Billy.
are.
Hey, how about this, John?
Video?
John, hang on, John. How about you pray for us, brother?
Go.
All right, Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this day. We thank you so much for all that you do. We thank you so much for the information that's provided us. Your book, your holy word of God has given us so many things to look at and learn. Father, we thank you for this wisdom, because without your wisdom, we have none. And Father, we thank you so much for all the blessings that you provided and all the things that you've given us, and for your glory. You give us these things out of your love for us, and we thank you so much. Thank you for the Lord Jesus Christ who died on the cross for our sins. Thank you, Lord, for all the blessings, for all the people you've healed over the years. And Father, we ask your healing upon all those who haven't been healed just yet, but we know that if it's your will, we know that you're going to heal them, because you're the great physician. You're the great I am. We know that we just have to come through you to get everything done. Father, we thank you so much for all that you're going to do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.